rain kept on like a dust, and the oldest boy, GD, who said it wasn't nothing, crossing through the woods behind old man Crookhands. He walked ahead of the others with a switch, cutting into the bushes. Whack, whack. Come on, you babies, he said, whipping again, the vines and leaves opening and closing around his blows. They followed close behind, the boys wolfing on with the girls, telling them jokes, trying to make them shiver or laugh. They crushed across the underbrush, skimming spider vines and breaking off bits of sweet bark to chew or spit. The mule path broke out into a clearing where the lumbermen had already come through. GD mounted a tree stump and touched the edge of the switch against his cheek, a nub of twig snagging on his teeth. His eyes drooped into lazy buttonholes, and he looked the others over. They moved from side to side, some of them holding up their hands, rubbing the rain into their fingers. Dora, he said. He pointed with the switch. She was taller and more willowy than the other girls. Her hair was brushed back, and she sloped her shoulders like she was trying to hide her size. Her slender arms made a knot over the front of her shirt. Not me. He moved the switch to the sharp of his smile. Yes. It's gonna rain, GD. GD shrugged and grinned at the others. He brought the switch down against his leg. Thwack. He made a circle around her. He beat down again. Thwack, thwack. She looked around her, but already the circle had tightened. Little Sally Water, setting in a saucer. Rise, Sally, rise. Wipe your weeping eyes. Dora sighed. She hunched down on her knees and pointed her backside up like a bucked mule, swinging it as they sang. Her frilled bloomers flashed out under her dress as she spun. Shake it to the east, Sally. Shake it to the west, Sally. Shake it to the one you love the best, Sally. When the song had ended, the world swished inside her head. She righted herself slowly to see who was behind her. If it was a girl, they would start again, this time faster, GD showing no mercy. She turned and looked. It was a boy. He was big-cheeked and wet-eyed, and she was at least a good head taller. He looked blankly at her through his long lashes. She'd seen him out with the others before, but he was always so quiet. He never laughed or cussed, but floated behind the others. GD gave the boy a nudge. Well, don't just stand there looking dumb. GD led the two of them out to the grove. The wind tipped past, trembling the branches. Thunder sounded out like split wood, and they all looked up at the little bits of sky coming through the leaves. GD winked at the boy and headed back to the clearing, arms crossed over his head. When he'd gone, Doris moved down the sides of her dress. The boy was looking at a spider stretched out between two branches. It sat fat and blood-filled in the center, its legs spreading like fingers. You're Billy Chatham's brother, ain't you? The boy shrugged. My sister told me your brother was wild, but he loved up a white girl and he... Doris stopped herself. The boy was looking at her. He sat down against the trunk and started scabbing at the bark, pulling it away in chips. He put them together in a pile, counting them out in his palm. What's your name? Dora asked. Robert Lee. Dora looked back from where they came. Let's not take too long then. He stared at her blankly. Come here, stand up against the trunk there. Robert stood up and pushed his sleeve up to his shoulder. They drooped back down past his knuckles. They weren't sized for him. Now shut your eyes so you can't see nothing. Everything was still for a moment. Just a slow breath of the magnolias and the sound of skeeters making the air goosebump and tremble. He thought he could hear the other children laughing in the distance, their small twinkling voices in the breeze. Then he felt the kiss, the damp spongy pressing against his mouth, something cold skimming the underside of his tongue, warm air brushing against the slope of his upper lip, something small and hard pressed into his hand. When he opened his eyes, the sky had split open. Men crowded the river edge. They worked through the night, sandbags at their shoulders, the numbness set heavy in their chests and arms. They sunk waist-deep into the soft mud, hefting their bodies forward and up. Somewhere beyond them was the river. It groaned and roiled. They could hear it eating the banks, crisping against the rocks. Come dawn, a wound of light bellied through the clouds. The men shifted under the cake of rain and mud and sweat. In the light, they could see what they couldn't before. Piece by piece, the embankment was falling away, their sandbags shooting up downriver. There was a pop, and a jet of gray water gushed through. Shouts rose up, and a wave of men rushed toward the break. They shorted up with their bodies, crying, "More men! More men!" The air cracked and the ground trembled. The water ripped through them, sending them into the air, into the mud. It burst forward, and the levee crumbled under it, tearing through the camp, through forest, rising up in a great yellow wall, driving close, fast, screaming like a train, its roar sucking up the sky, a voice crowning open like the Almighty himself. through Fittler and Cary and Halpin, acre by acre, through cornfields and cotton rows, plantation houses and dog runs, wood and brick and mortar, through the depots and the churchyards and the rail yards, through forest and valley, tugging up stone and mud and trees, snapping boulders through the air. Houses rose up, bobbed, and smashed together like eggshells, bleeding burrows, bathtubs, drawers, gramophones. The people scrambled up their roofs, up trees, clinging to one another. The water blew them from their perches, swept them into the drift, or smashed them against debris. They bubbled up, swollen and drowned, ragdolling in the current, moving deeper and deeper inland to Issaquena. Yes. Next is my good buddy, Scott Kessler.